Hey everyone, in this video, we are going to figure out how to find the circumference of a circle given the radius only. Now, to begin with, you need to know the formulas of how to find the circumference of a circle, and I have them jotted down here in the bottom left-hand corner. The first one is circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius, jotted down right here. And the other formula that you can utilize as well is circumference equals pi times the diameter. And for each one of these problems, I want you to be aware that I'm going to be approximating for pi at 3.14. Now, in case you don't know, pi is an irrational number. It's a number that just goes on forever and ever, never, never, never. And we tend to approximate it just by its first few digits, 3.14. And I have that written here in the bottom right-hand corner, just in case you forget what number we're utilizing for pi. Okay, now to break down the formulas a little bit more, if we start with the first one, c equals 2 pi r, so we have circumference equals 2 times, and then we're going to utilize 3.14 for pi, and then r stands for our radius, which is half the length of the circle. The other formula is circumference equals pi, again 3.14, times d, or the diameter, which is the full length of the circle, just to give you a little bit of information about each formula before we hop into the problems. Okay, so let's move on to number one. And if I look at my circle here, I'm given half the length of the circle, otherwise known as the radius, which is 6 centimeters. So I'm going to utilize the formula that has the radius in it, which is c equals 2 times pi times r. And I'm going to end up utilizing this formula only for each one of these problems, just because we're given the radius only in these particular problems. So let's start out by jotting our formula. Circumference equals 2 pi r. So we have c equals 2 times pi times r. Okay, now let's plug in our values. And since I'm approximating for pi, I'm going to change my equal sign to an approximately symbol because we're not using the full value for pi. So we have 2 still the same, replacing pi with 3.14. And then we have times our radius, again, half the length of the circle, which in this case is 6. Okay, if we multiply and know 6 times 2 easily is 12, so c is approximately 12 times 3.14. And if I take out my calculator here, so we have 12 times 3.14, and we end up getting the circumference to be approximately 37 and 6/800. So let's jot that down. We have c is approximately 37 and 6/800ths, and the units of measurement that we're using is centimeters. Okay, so final answer, circumference is approximately 37 and 6/800ths centimeters. Okay, now if you watch my previous video on area, it would be squared centimeters, but since we're talking about circumference, do not square your units of measurement. Right, now another question that I see as well is find the circumference but leave your answer in terms of pi. So all that means is don't plug in a number for pi at all. Just leave the pi symbol the way it is. So if I backtrack a little bit, we'll go back to plugging in 6 for our radius. So we have c equals, and 2 is already there in the formula, times pi, and our radius is 6. Okay, multiply the two numbers together, so you get c equals 12 times pi, or just 12 pi. Okay, so if your question asks you to leave it in terms of pi, don't plug in a number for all of pi. Literally just leave pi the way it is. So 2 times 6 is 12. 12 times pi is just 12 pi. Okay, so there's two different ways you can get your answer there. So c is approximately 37 6/800 centimeters, or if you leave it in terms of pi, we have 12 pi. Okay, let's move on to number 2. So same thing, let's jot down our formula. Circumference equals 2 pi r. So c equals 2 times pi times the radius. Okay, let's plug in our values. C is approximately 2 times 3.14 times 10. If we multiply our values, we know 2 times 10 is 20, so c is approximately 20 times 3.14. And if we take out our calculator here, we have 20 times 3.14, which is going to give us 62 and 8/10. So c is approximately 62 and 8/10, and now we're dealing with inches. Okay, if you want to leave your answer in terms of pi, if we just didn't put in a number for pi at all and just left it as the pi symbol, our answer would end up being c equals 20 pi. Okay, so that's it for these two problems. Now, before you go, I encourage you to try the two practice problems that I have on this screen here. I just want to make sure that you know how to find the circumference given the radius just fine. So I encourage you to pause the video here, okay? Try and figure out the circumference of circles 3 and 4, and when you think you have the correct answers, come back and play the video and see if you got them both right. So I'm assuming at this point you have paused the video, you've tried out 3 and 4, and now let's see if you got the circumference correct. Okay, so let's hop right into 3. So let's start with our formula. We have circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius. Let's plug in our values. So c is approximately 2 times, and pi we have 3.14, times our radius, which is 16. I know 16 times 2 is 32, so c is approximately 32 times 3.14. Okay, and if we go ahead and multiply those, again, let's take out our calculator here. We have 32 times 3.14. We end up getting 148 hundredths. So c is approximately 148 hundredths, and our units of measurement is inches. Okay, if you're leaving your answer in terms of pi, you should have got 32 pi. So c equals 32 pi. Right? Now let's move on to number 4. Okay, same thing. Let's jot down our formula. C equals 2 times pi times r. Let's plug in our values. C is approximately 2 times 3.14 times r, which is 7. I know 7 times 2 is 14. So we have 14 times 3.14. Okay, let's go ahead and multiply those. So we have 14 times 3.14. And we end up getting 43 and 96 hundredths roughly. So C is approximately, we had what, 43 and 96 hundredths. Units of measurement, we have centimeters. And if we were leaving our answer in terms of pi, this would be circumference equals 14 pi. Okay, so that's the questions that I have for you. Hopefully you went 2 for 2 in the practice problems. And after watching this video, you're able to find the circumference of a circle given the radius just fine, right? So if I helped you out, feel free to leave a like, comment. If you want to follow me on other social media, I make Instagram reels. They're just shorter length math videos, as well as TikTok, and doing the same exact thing. So I'll leave those links in the description. I'll leave the area of a circle in case you're learning that as well. And I'll see you guys in the next video. I appreciate you watching. Till next time.